pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, a nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. All right, Terry, roll call, please.
Mrs. Fish. Dr. Katachu. Mr. Gordon.
Here.
Dr. Gursky. Mr. Kirsch.
Here.
Mr. Reichert. Dr. Uasa.
Here.
Mrs. Edmeades. Mr. Huron.
Here. Thank you. Okay, first order of business now is the meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes as presented?
I'll make the motion.
All right, thank you. All in favor, aye. Aye. All opposed,
Aye.
no. Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, item 2 are administrative announcements. Columbia Montour VOTEC, we do have a presentation tonight. Mr. Lila will be doing that a little further into the presentation. I think that's the focus. I know that there was also a steering committee meeting. I don't know if Ricky, that's something you want to touch on now, or you had envisioned that a little later.
I can do that now.
Okay.
I was at the steering committee meeting last night. They're looking at renovations and some upgrades, but no major changes in programming. When we involve the VOTEC, just we need to get it up to code and up to standards as far as it goes for the building. It is an older building. They have a nice design, and it's very different than what was previously proposed. So we will be hearing about that in a future meeting.
Okay, thank you. CSIU, usually Dr. Katachu speaks to that. I don't know if there was anything there tonight. Okay. Finance Committee, Mr. Kirsch, please.
Oh yeah, we had a meeting on March 3rd from 4:30 to 5:30 discussing a range of topics. There was discussion about an old inactive student activity account that had resulted in a balance of $3,600. And the administration is recommending to the board that the funds be dispersed equally among the 4 buildings for the positive behavioral interventions in each building. It's on the board agenda tonight for approval under item 11.4. It was also discussed how cyber school tuition is calculated. It's pretty eye-opening to see how it is calculated based on the budgeted expenses of the district and not the expenses of the cyber school. The Pennsylvania Department of Education publishes to their website the school district's rate based on the forms that the Department of Education receives from the school districts. For example, Danville pays a little under $13,000 per non-special education student. Tamaqua area pays a little over $9,000, and then New Hope Solebury pays $22,000 for the same exact classes and services per student. Our in-house cyber academy costs the district $4,000 per student. A report was also presented showing that there is currently a 6.33% decrease in our EIT revenue, so it's roughly $229,000 compared to last year for the first 2 payments. So that's a little unnerving at this point to see if that holds over the next 2 quarters. We spoke with the administration about establishing thresholds for all tax assessment appeals. The thresholds will determine when the district will have either the business manager or the solicitor attend the appeal hearings. We reviewed the published Moody's Investors Service Credit Rating to the Danville School District. It remains unchanged from a previous rating of is that a 2A, Bobby? AA3, sorry. Obligations are rated AA, are judged to be of high quality, and are subject to very low credit risk. There are many areas that establish this credit rating, but one of them is the fund balance of the district. A district that has a fund balance of 17.5% up to 25% of their annual expenditures would receive a rating for that category of AA. To receive AAA, that would be the highest category. for the category the district would need to have 25% or higher. And the fund balance, we currently have 18.1 and therefore received a rating of AA.
You just real quick on that EIT again, where there's a shortfall of how much did you say?
$229,000 when compared to the first two payments of 2020.
You know what that is? Or is this
Earned
something
income.
everybody- Yeah, no,
Earned
no, I
income
know that,
taxes.
but why is such a big
So
shortfall?
some of it's unemployment, and then another piece that we discovered is Geisinger is doing their payroll a little differently. So we're hoping to recover some of that shortfall in the third payment, but we're not sure. They're doing a third-party vendor for their payroll.
Okay.
So we're hoping to recoup some of it, but it's a pretty significant
Big number.
difference. Yep.
Okay. All right, thank you for that. Anybody else? Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Curriculum committee, is there anything there? Oh, Dr. Bickhart.
Okay, just a couple quick things on curriculum committee. We met after the finance meeting on the 3rd. I think one of the big announcements is the comprehensive plan has now been officially approved by the state, which is a good thing. We can move forward with that. We had to make a couple of adjustments, but we were set there. Some other key topics we talked about were just a little bit more about professional development going to next year, what we're going to look at when it comes to online learning with teachers and continuing that, but also coming back to some of the more traditional in-person working with teachers to improve instruction in their classroom. So we'll be working with them over the course of the next few weeks, few months to outline those details. SEL curriculum will be a major part of this. The principals are leading that charge inside of their buildings when it comes to how that will look. The key there is making sure we understand that SEL, social emotional learning, is just as important as any other curriculum area, and that we need to embed it and work with our teachers, and that it's important that they understand that no matter what the subject area is, if a moment is happening where they need to work with their kids on any kind of a emotional issue, they have that freedom to do that within their curriculum. So that will be a big push next year. And then just in general, when it comes to where the curriculum is going, we are really diving into where we start in kindergarten and how we approach kids walking in the door through all the way to the 12th grade. So K to 5, Mr. Gump, Mrs. Willoughby, and I are looking at how do we reframe and how do we look at what are the best options for our students. And the way I want to look at it is our job is to teach children, not content. The content will come through our ability to engage kids. So I think we need to step back a little bit. We need to have high standards. We need to have a focus, but we're going to work towards that with our teachers, using the time they have, the skills they have to equip our kids. I want to balance that academic push. We need it. We need to take kids who have that ability, but we also know we need to make sure school is this engaging spot they want to be at as well. That we're just not. So there's a delicate balance. I think that we're equipped to do that, and we'll work through that. Another key part I want to make, and then I'll finish with our big thing. Key thing I want to say is we are going to work this summer on the tech side of things on the website when it comes to curriculum, and making sure we're pretty transparent with parents what our guides look like. So we made an adjustment this week just to pause a lot of the links, because I don't want parents being confused of what is this and is this changed. So we have a little note there that says this summer we'll be updating some of these guides to make sure they are completely relatable to what we are doing into the high school, middle school, and even elementary next year. Finally, our continued direction when it comes to career pathways at the high school and adding our zip codes. We made another major step. We met with the entire high school staff. We worked with them. Mr. Mathias came in and he's partnering with us. His knowledge of what they did at Central is guiding us to create a Danville model. The teachers were very receptive, lots of great questions. Mr. Wynn, Mr. Verholic, and I are going to meet with each department now at the high school to continue that question of what can your department do to move this forward? What do we need to answer? What can we do to continue to make our high school, more accepting, more available to all kids? We want to meet that high end, but we also want to meet every kid that walks through those doors and have something that is enticing to them. So, Dr. Boyle, anything I missed that you want to add?
Now, the only thing I would like to add, Dr. Bickhart, is the fact that our SEL curriculum, our social emotional learning curriculum, also encompasses bully prevention. And I don't want people to think because we're not using those words, we're not addressing it. We're addressing their well-being in many ways, but that's also a very, very big component to help students have a better self-advocacy skills and know where to go when they do feel like they are being picked on. So that's part of what we're doing. It's just embedded in the SEL curriculum.
I have one thing I wanted to ask. You shared in some of that view of the future, and I like that a lot. How do we take a look as we hopefully, and everything's trending that way, putting COVID in the rearview mirror? How do we assess the potential or the amount of quote unquote damage that was done with all levels? Like, you should be now going to 6th grade, but you're not, like, is it something that's we're working towards to have a plan? Is there a state driven, or how do we just maybe a snapshot of that view?
So the first thing, the state put out early on what are called focus on effective instruction standards. So they prioritize standards. So we've had access to those. Teachers have seen those. They're on their website. It kind of just puts a framework around what are the most essential skills. So my answer to you on that would be part of it, no, all of it is on us. I mean that. Kids didn't break. And I think that is something that's so important we have to remember. And I've been saying this a lot when I'm with the staff is we can't look at kids when they come back next year. Hopefully we're getting as many of them back as possible and think, oh boy, we got to catch every little thing up. We are going to look at learning loss. Some of the funding that's coming through is going to allow us to do summer school opportunities, after school opportunities next year, and summer school the following. Some of the funding is going to be literally earmarked for that. So we're going to look at it from that standpoint, but it's not just about academics. It's about that emotional piece. It's about that physical activity. So, that socializing, hopefully, as we move forward. But I think the important part for us to look at is we need to realize that while it may not have been biology or 4th grade math, kids their eyes were open to a lot. They went through a lot. It was a very much life learning experience over this, just like it's been for all of us. So I think we need to meet them. I think our teachers will be equipped to do that. I think we're going to go in and we're going to dive into each curriculum area and talk about what are the most essential concepts and how is it, or what needs to be reviewed that was missed in 2nd grade and 3rd grade, but is not. I'm very concerned. I don't want kids to become overwhelmed. And I think that's what can happen in a lot of schools moving forward, is that kids are going to walk back in and tons of content is going to be thrown at them. And I think we need to step back. We need to prioritize. What I've said to a lot of the curriculum groups is prioritize, compact, and remove. What is inside your curriculum that is the most priority? What can we compact in? And we know it's taught later, and we want to spend more time on the priority. And we just make sure we're communicating across grade levels and across buildings. What also needs to be removed? Are there certain areas right now because of the situation we need to say, hold on, that's not right now for 3rd grade. We're diving in. I'm doing a little bit more research on what is appropriate. What should we be doing with age levels of kids, and how are we meeting them coming out of this pandemic?
Right.
So yeah, short answer is yes, it's being discussed, and we're going to handle that.
Okay, but it's I guess then that was very well explained, and that answered the question. But that's all. It's not driven from afar. There's no something we're going to do all this testing and we're going to just try to sort through the gaps and try to find shortfalls. It's going to be
assessment's a piece of it.
Okay.
Our teachers, quality instruction, watching where kids are at is the answer to this.
Okay.
Meeting kids where they're at, us doing that analysis and working with kids and giving them high quality instruction. We need assessment pieces. Right? For instance, the state is going to use the assessments. We are going to be moving forward with that, but we want parents to understand when we do this assessment this spring, that is for us to learn a little bit about learning loss. It's not an evaluative tool right now of who's performing at the best levels. It's what did work, what gains their losses are we seeing through that assessment, that piece, and how do we improve on that? How do our teachers use that data?
Awesome. All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Appreciate that explanation. Thank you, Dr. Bighart. Okay. Next item, Superintendent's Report. I'll turn that over to Dr. Boyle, please.
All right, I have several things to cover because this district's doing a lot of great things, and the community's being a very positive influence on things that's happening as well. First off, our enrollment's staying pretty steady. We're right now doing kindergarten enrollment, so we have several students already enrolled, about 80 or so, that have either partially enrolled or fully enrolled in kindergarten. And as we work through it in the next few weeks, we'll know exactly our numbers. It's our hope to see a full cadre of students again this coming year so that we can get them back into the classroom and get things moving more quickly. One of the things that's happening, and I want to say a thank you to Megan Oldfield, Marty Harris, Claire Lawrence, Aaron Ross, Daria Vodzak, who's a former teacher that I worked with here in the district, and a few others that I didn't get their names, for the donation of the self-care baskets that they're giving to the various buildings. They're including things like water, snacks, pencils, supplies, chapstick, all kinds of wonderful things, including chocolates, so that the students have a small way to get through their day. Just an encouragement. And they also have included magnets or cards with emergency number for the older students. So I think that's a real positive piece. And we are very grateful to those women and the group that they have formed to be supportive of this district. Geisinger Appreciation Project is on its way. The primary building, I don't know if you saw the pictures in the newspaper, but let me tell you, they went all out. What they collected exceeded all expectations, and they had over 80 totes or baskets of goodies that were packed full. So it took us one of our bigger box trucks to take it all over to Geisinger, and that's one building so far. So we'll continue this, look at things a little bit differently, maybe do some different things by building, but it's pretty exciting. Also in the community, I want to announce the pre-registration for the 2021 Danville T-Reelers football and cheerleading program. It is online it'll be on our website. We will be sending home flyers for the students to bring in Tuesday folders. They're looking at Saturday, March 27th or April 10th for the football signups, and Saturday, March 27th for the cheerleading signups. If you have questions, you can call the main office, or again, we'll be sending some things home to support that as well. Dr. Bickhart went over pretty much what was happening on Act 80 Day, so I'll jump over that. Pennsylvania travel restrictions have been lifted to some degree by Governor Wolf, so that means the educational trip requests are going to be considered on a case-by-case basis. At this time, we are definitely accepting travel between states, but we are not going to be approving international travel at this time. And that the principals are also working on the ones that have already been submitted for future dates to go back and re-review and contact the families. So you don't need to call them, they'll call you. Vaccinations, I'm very happy to say we have over 130 individuals that will be vaccinated this weekend through the initiative from the state with the Johnson & Johnson vaccines. Because of this, and due to the fact that there are side effects of the injection, we're going to have an asynchronous day on March 15th. Now, I advise parents to look at their child's Google Classroom, or children to look at their Google Classrooms, because teachers who feel well are probably going to want to be on doing some more things as well. So that's going to be a total virtual day for all students, including special education. But again, some of it will be asynchronous and some people will be doing synchronous if they feel well enough. There are exceptions. At the high school, previously planned, there's a PSATs in the morning, and there are students who have signed up for that will be coming to the school for that. And in the afternoon, there's the National Honor Society induction. That is a virtual program that will be recorded that afternoon. And then from there, it will be posted on YouTube. Mr. Nguyen, did I get everything you needed? Okay, all sophomores take the PSATs, so they all need to attend. Prom, May 8th will be on the high school grounds. We'll be using tents, have a dance floor for them, but it's on May 8th. And we will allow all current Danville High School students to attend. And if you have questions, please contact Rebecca Riedler, the junior class advisor. They've been working on this for quite a while. Graduation is June 4th. The plans are tentative because we don't know what the restrictions will be. Hopefully they'll lift even more so we can have more people in the building. But it's likely we're still going to have a limitation on the number of tickets we can give you. We are looking at things that might be outdoor or indoor, but we always have to deal with weather. So we'll be watching that closely. Valediction is May 27th. Again, we have to think about how many people can be in the gymnasium, but we're hoping that those occupancy restrictions will be lifted. Couple student recognitions. Annalise Yike and Cameron Cummins placed first in the Northeast region of Pennsylvania, and they made this year's all-state band, which is quite an accomplishment. Only 2 in the Northeast region had gotten to do that, and that was our 2. Also, the high school has 2 finalists in the National Merit Award, so I congratulate Joy Zhang and Zoe Zola. And one more thing I want everyone to be aware of, something very unique that's happening in our high school, is usually the U.S. History 9th grade groups, scholars go to D.C. to tour the memorials and the Holocaust Museum. The social studies teachers and Mrs. Hughes, who is the advisor for the Veterans Club, have worked to assist the students in creating a World War II memorial museum in the library at the high school for Friday, March 12th. Members of the veteran clubs will be watching over all the items at there, talking to the groups about what's there and all the importance of remembering the World War II, and then recognizing even individuals in our community who were participants there. The play starts tomorrow night. It's tomorrow, Friday, and Saturday. And we did put a trailer on the website if anybody wants to check that out. It's very well done. One more thing, Dr. Bickhardt, summer programs. We have in the elementary, tentative plans are June 14th through July 8th with Mondays off, Monday the 5th off, Monday through Thursday, 9 to 2. And we're looking at this as having academic, social-emotional activities, a camp atmosphere, so that it's not just hammering, but we're getting them back into the idea of being together, of having activities, of having fun at school again. And of course, you can still learn and have fun. Lunch and recess will be included, and we'll have busing provided. The middle school, June 14th through July 8th, the same dates, Monday through Thursday, and that would be in the morning. There'll be academics, social emotional activities, various things going on in the building, lunch, recess, and busing. And if the board has anything else that they think we should consider, please let us know. And the last item for today is the COVID report. There were 15 positive cases reported from Montour County throughout the last 7 days, which is an average of 2.1 new cases a day. So our numbers are going down significantly, and I'm very encouraged to see that. Over the past 14 days, as of Monday, there had been 5 positive cases in the building. 3 involved one family group. So there are no new cases involving adults. So again, we're seeing numbers decrease significantly. Anything else?
Okay, yeah. On the COVID topic, what is the current view of opportunity to move us in the direction to have 5 days of in-classroom school?
I believe we need to do that minimally right after the spring break, but I could see us, I wouldn't be opposed to starting like the 22nd or the 29th of March. It would be a decision we'd make, but the numbers are going down. It does mean that our social distancing will be much closer. That would be the only piece, but it does, the teachers are getting vaccinated this weekend. We really should give that 2 weeks is what they advise for the vaccine to be considered fully vaccinated. And if that makes 2 weeks, it would be March 29th, I believe. Would be the best date to start that.
Okay, so then the next steps to kind of put that into some level of decision making would be, how would we get there from here now? Like, what would we need to do as an organization?
Well, quite honestly, you had given me permission to change the calendar or the schedule previously when we did the health and safety document. So I could do that, but I would like to have, the conclusion that the board is supportive.
Okay.
So, and we could look at it even on the 24th. We have a board meeting. It could be a vote there if you chose, or somebody could make a motion tonight to do such.
And we've seen it done both ways for school districts, depending on what the authorization was to the superintendent. So, both ways are fine as well.
Yeah, I know that there's the formal side of it, but then there's the pragmatic side where we try to engage all folks and getting their input and then making that decision. Because the other part behind that is all the planning that goes in, and then the other side is the family impacts to start planning towards that reality. So, is there any other thoughts on that one from any of the board members?
So to do it tonight, or just that's a date. We would have to make a motion tonight, or we could.
We could, or like I am already authorized to go ahead and do that. So it could be either way.
Well, I will not speak for everybody on the board, but I'm ready to go back whenever you see.
I would just like the vaccinations to be
Yep.
firmed, and
I think
that's
that's
where the 29th would be the first date.
So I'm okay with the 29th.
Any other board members have any thoughts on this subject? I know it's been front and center routinely, and it's obviously still is. So I guess I'm reaching out to Dr. Yuasa and Mr. Gordon. You guys have any input on this one? And
Mr.
Christina,
Huron,
I'm sorry, Christina.
no, I had some technical difficulties. I apologize.
Sorry.
I would just have some concern. I did hear Dr. Boyle say that the social distancing is going to be a challenge, and we've got some classrooms that are smaller in size. So I think if admin could find a way to put those classes or use those classrooms for smaller groups and be able to move larger groups to the bigger classrooms, so that we aren't faced with quarantining again.
Okay. All right. Anybody else?
Yeah, Chris, I'm a little confused. If right now we're on a 4-day, how would social distancing be impacted by adding the 5th day? I'm not sure how I understand that. Dr. Boyle, I think you hinted on that or spoke to
The
that.
reality would be that more students may want to return to the building, Mr. Gordon. They
Gotcha.
returned when we
Okay.
came 4 days, so I can't say it definitely will, but it may. And that's why I want to be transparent to let you know that.
Okay, and don't we have something in place where we have certain dates when students and parents have to make the decision on what type of learning they choose?
We allowed them to make the decision when we went back to 4 days and came out of the virtual, and then we've talked about having it at the beginning of the 4th marking period again.
Okay,
Which is
so
Real close to the 29th of March.
yeah, that's March 31st, right? I think. Okay, thank you.
Dr. Yuasa, do you have any thoughts on this subject?
No.
I didn't hear what he said. I'm sorry. No? Okay. All right. So I guess we're looking at the 29th. Is that kind of what I've concluded by this discussion? Need some help
Right,
with
that
just
would
trying to,
be
I
the
don't want to leave
soonest.
this too nebulous because I know it's really important, but I also don't want to force something without proper progression of the process.
Yeah.
I'm
Do any of the
I'm in
principals
agreement.
have a comment? Right, elementary is already 5 days a week. It's only the middle and high school.
I guess, I mean, if no, and this is just me trying to summarize because I know we're just trying to get a dialogue flowing, but it sounds like to me we're going to cross a very significant bridge with the percentage of the teaching team to be vaccinated, with regard as well to the Modena and the Pfizer, the double shot and that stagger to get the full benefit of that. The Johnson & Johnson's the one shot thing. And so we're talking about having to make plans, and I really appreciate what Mr. Gordon says, and Christine, it's a fair view too, but we already are in 4 days. And I understand why that other day in the strategy there, but for my seat, I'd really like to see us move as aggressively to a date and get it out there, and so everybody out there can plan for it. So I don't know if we're ready to declare that tonight, or we'll do it outside, through another means. But I just think we need to get a date and work towards that date and just plan it that way.
Mr. Gordon, were you saying something?
Yes, I just simply said that I was in agreement with you, Mr. Kirsch, on the 29th as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
So do we have any opposition to working towards the 29th, I guess is what I'm trying to get us to some kind of something of substance. Yes, sir. Wait a minute, Mr. Rin, just so that the folks can hear you, please. Thank you.
One thing I'll say about the high school moving classrooms around, like let's say we have a math classroom, might have 20 kids in it. The next period they might have 12, and social distancing is okay. So for teachers to pick up all their materials and move them, like Mrs. Fish said, is going to be really difficult. So social distancing, we're not going to be able to guarantee social distancing at the high school, and to move around classroom to classroom or period to period is logistically would be, I wouldn't say impossible, but very difficult. Mr. Snover wants to talk about the middle school.
So what you're saying is the practical side of quote unquote guaranteeing 6 foot 100% isn't practical. And we can't say definitively right now because we don't know how many folks would migrate back into the classroom. But with that said, we would be in a position to communicate that to families if they're to have them to own the discretion to understand that dynamic. Because I think we're looking at this in a larger scale. I think everybody's anxious with trying to get us to that next step, but I want to be respectful of all the considerations. So I'm not trying to drive that as much as I just want us to position ourselves to make that decision. So with that said, I mean, I don't know if there's more to this 29th.
Daryl, do you have a thought? Because I didn't hear from you. I didn't hear from you. Do you have a thought on this?
Mr. Huron, we can't hear Mr. Reichert.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. Thank you. Yeah, just hold the button down. Yeah, okay. Thank you, Christina. It's on now.
What Mr. Reichert said was that his concern was that if we want to do this for the 29th, we need to be able to get the information out now so parents can make the decision as to how many of their students, if any, they want to return to school 5 days a week.
Which will also give the school and the teachers enough adequate time to know what's coming. Maybe they can help prepare themselves a little bit easier instead of them all just rush in one day and here they are.
Okay, so not to belabor it, but I just feel like this is that important. So if I'm hearing this discussion, which has been very fruitful, so we're going to right now put a plan in place to move towards full classroom across the board for the 29th. And with that, we'll allow the team to work through the process to get the communications out, whatever those steps are you guys have done along the way to get all that information to work towards that. So that way, like Mr. Reichert says, we're starting the communication to the community, people starting to plan, and then we can shake out the details in the process.
Thank you.
Is that a fair assessment? Okay, thank you. All right, thanks everybody. All right, our friends from Columbia Montour are still out there, I hope. Oh, excuse me, I do that every time, don't I? Step over one of those. I apologize for that. I'm getting anxious for Mr. Lilo. All right, now we're moving on to public comment time, our first one of the night. This public comment period is for agenda items only, and they are limited to 3 minutes. And if you care to make a public comment, please state your name and address, and we'll allow you to do so. And we will start first with the folks here in the room, and I'm gazing across the room. Is there anybody here tonight that wants to? Nobody? At least some people are making eye contact, so it's not right. All right, nobody in the room cares to. Is there anybody out in virtual land that would like to make a public comment?
Yes, we have one individual.
Okay.
Go ahead and state your name and address, please. Please unmute yourself.
It looks like he might have got disconnected.
No, I see him on there. It's an older version of Zoom, so I have to promote the panelist. Mr. Heffelfinger, are you there?
Jeff, does it look like there's a technical issue, or do we hold on a little longer?
Yeah, they're muting and unmuting and must not be getting any audio across that at this point.
Is it pragmatic just to send him a note or him or her and say they're welcome to make that public comment we ironed out for the next one at the end of the meeting?
Yep.
Is that respectful? Okay. Oh, all right. I just don't know how long you wait before we realize it's not going to happen too, so that's.
I'm going to see if I can get through with chat.
Attorney Dunbar, can you give us some guidance on how long to wait or what we should do here, please?
Yeah, what I would recommend at this point, due to the technical difficulties, is to proceed. But as soon as the individual is able to connect again, then we can allow that public comment and then continue on with the meeting.
Thank you.
But Jeff, I do conclude that's just the one individual trying to make a public comment.
Yes, the other two individuals are from the paper. No one else has their hand up, so we have no more public comment.
Okay. All right, fair enough. All right, then we'll move on to the next order of business tonight, which is a presentation from Mr. Tony Lilo. And welcome, Tony. Thank you for joining us tonight. He's with the team over at Columbia Montour Area Vocational Technical School, also known as VOTEC, and he is here to present on the budget.
Well,
So I will turn it over to Mr. Lilo. Hi there. Hi, Tony.
Thank you, Mr. Huron. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Good. And I'm glad you're excited to hear my presentation, Mr. Huron. So I also wanted to point out Mr. Ken Kreider is here with us as well. He's our administrative director. He is actually showing up as Tony Lilo as well. He's the Tony Lilo with the mustache and the glasses. I'm the Tony Lilo without. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to share my screen. I do have a little PowerPoint. You'll be able to see that, I'm assuming, if I do that? Okay.
I believe so.
So let's try this, and let's see.
Yeah, we can see it, Tony.
You can see it. Okay.
Yeah. Nice color scheme, by the way.
Okay, the green and gold. Okay, let's see if I can. All right. So I'm going to start, and this will just be a brief overview of our budget that you'll be asked to vote on. I'm not sure if you're voting voting on this at this meeting or a future meeting, but I'll give you a brief overview, and then you'll have an opportunity to ask me any questions. The total budgeted expense for the 2021-22 budget for CMAVTS is $9,797,889. That's right around a 3% increase over what the current year's expenses are budgeted at. The reason for the increases, you can see them there: salaries, Peaser's contribution, Technical services, the reason technical services are slightly higher, that there's an increase, is because, as Dr. Boyle mentioned earlier, we are looking at doing a project here at the school, and there will be some costs associated with that we had to take into account, and that's why that number has increased. There's about $50,000 in there for architect fees, those sorts of things. If the project would start sooner than that, that'll probably just get rolled into that, and you won't see any additional expense next year in that category. And then repairs and maintenance. One of the things we want to do moving forward is we want to make sure that all of our rooms are kept up to standards. Even if we have a project that accomplishes most of that, we want to have at least some money in the budget that's there for painting, touch-ups, things like that throughout the year. So that's why you see that. So the total contributions from the 6 sending districts, I broke it into 2 areas here. So the first number you see there, the $6,928,785, that's the actual contribution without the shortfall that's been created by the departure of Benton from our consortium. So the departure of Benton has created, will create next year, as you can see, $252,000 shortfall, because this year we have sophomores, juniors, and seniors from Benton area. Next year we'll just have the junior and senior classes. So that while they'll have about 20 tuition-paying students, this year they have around 30 tuition-paying students. So that's why you'll have next year a shortfall that the 6 sending districts, through having additional students being able to attend, will also have to contribute an additional amount. Does anybody have any questions regarding that? Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, so that's for the entire school. The next slide will show you what Danville specifically would be contributing. So we'd be asking for a total of $1,548,812, and you can see the breakdown there. So your portion of that 252,000 would be the 54,532. Now, what makes up all of our expenses? Just about every school district, salaries, taxes, benefits, retirement accounts for almost all of our expenditures, 79% to be exact. All other expenses account for 21%. And this next slide shows you where that 20% is allocated. Supplies, equipment, textbooks, that number really has stayed pretty consistent for the last several years. Our teachers have done an outstanding job of using the resources, reusing supplies to be able to keep that figure as low as possible. And then you see the others: transportation, outside services, athletics. In the athletics number, I always like to include the salaries in that number, because the salaries in this number weren't included in that 79%. That's to show you that at the full number that athletics accounts for in our budget. Utilities, 1.8%, and then repairs at 1.7%, which equates to the 21%. The equipment that we have in the budget that we are purchasing or expecting to purchase next year, the breakdown would be mostly vocational equipment, 117,000. Chromebooks, because we are 1-to-1 here. So all of the freshmen, we would be purchasing Chromebooks for all the freshmen, and then we rotate out the senior Chromebooks because that's typically the lifespan, a four-year lifespan. Athletic equipment, uniforms primarily, which are on a rotation. And then school nurse office, we need to buy some new testing equipment audio testing equipment, and eye vision testing equipment. Now, where do we get the money to pay for all of those things? The primary source are the contributions that come from you and the 5 other districts. So that accounts for 73% of our total funding. For those of you who are new, and just to give you a little refresher, the way that we calculate the amount that you send to us is it's in our Articles of Agreement, and it's a formula that is 50% based on the average daily membership of your school versus the other 5 school districts. And it's the total average daily membership. So it's kindergarten through 12th grade, and it compares that against the other 5 districts. Then the other 50% of the formula is how many kids you send to us. And that's the average daily membership versus the other 5 districts. Those are both on a 4-year rolling average. So if you send 125 kids to us at the beginning of the year, and 2 kids withdraw and decide to come back to Danville, you're not going to see an immediate impact in the year that those kids withdraw. That'll be built into the 4-year rolling average. So you will eventually see an impact, but it's not an immediate impact. And then the other things that we use to fund the budget, state funding accounts for 15%. State funding is a vocational subsidy. You get a basic education subsidy, we get a vocational subsidy. And that vocational subsidy equates to about $500,000 a year, which is about $750, $775 per student that attends here. Along with that, we also receive from the state 50% of what we pay into Social Security and 50% of what we pay into the retirement fund. That comes back to us. We also have some money that comes in from our adult programs. Now, we do offer adult evening programs that generate income. We have a summer camp here at the school that essentially breaks even. And then, of course, we have some interest on our accounts. This year, as I spoke about earlier, and next year, we expect $393,000 to come from non-member students. So more than likely, Benton students. And I calculated it on the number that we anticipate being here next year. That would be the amount they are still contributing. And then, as I showed you earlier, the $252,000 is the amount that the 6 districts would have to make up. And then the remainder of that is federal funding, $150,000. That's the Carl Perkins grant. That's an amount that each year federal government and the state determine how much we are to receive, and then we have to write a grant to match that amount, to match the typically right around $150,000. We use that on a couple of paraprofessionals, a couple of tutors, and usually 1 or 2 pieces of equipment. And then the remainder of the funding is going to come from using some of our fund balance. So we do show a shortfall in this next year's budget of $447,000, and we would use our fund balance to make up that difference. At the end of 2022, we expect to still have $809,000 remaining in our fund balance. Of that balance, $706,000 of it would be unassigned, and $103,000 of it is committed to future expenditures. $68,000 of it for capital improvements, and the remainder for inventory. Looking at the next 5 years and a projection, after 5 years, we're looking at using our fund balance each of those years, and that's with asking for a 5% increase in contributions in 2022, 23, 23, 24, and 24, 25. Now, we had been asking for 5% every year so that we were able to maintain somewhat of a fund balance. This year, we were actually able to ask for a little bit less than that, 2.71%. And the reason for that is last year, we had a couple of positions that we didn't fill throughout the year. And of course, COVID shut us down for a couple of months. So we had lower supply expenditures, those sorts of things that allowed us to carry forward a higher fund balance than we anticipated. Therefore, we were able to charge a lesser amount for next year's budget, which is a good thing. But looking forward and talking to the budget and finance team, they would like us to, at least for now, base our forecast on a 5% increase moving forward, just because they feel it's necessary to maintain at least a little bit of a fund balance. What we don't want to have to do is come back to you when we have a boiler go down, something like that. We want to have some things in reserve. And then I just wanted to touch on some of the things that all of you may not know. Now, of course, Mr. Huron knows because he's here at our meetings. I'm sure a lot of the rest of you know Dr. Boyle. But for those of you who don't, so what do your kids get when they come to CMAVTS? They get 17 state-approved vocational programs. They get to participate in a capstone cooperative education program, which means they are placed into the workplace next to skilled professionals they're teaching them the things. It's basically a continuation of what they're learning here at CMAVTS. And then we have a certified co-op instructor / coordinator that sets up a learning plan for each of those students when they go out into the workplace. And there are times in a normal year, and we may get to that yet by the end of this year, we have upwards of 70, 75 students out in the workplace. Some of them earning as much as, believe it or not, $30,000 in a part-time co-op job during a school year, which is just fantastic. And then of course, students are trained. We train them and have kept up with the latest technology. That's something we've really been able to do. Our building needs some upgrades, but as far as through grants over the years, we've been able to keep up with technology. Our students are learning on the best. They're learning on things that they'll see in the workplace. And then our instructors have to have actually several thousand hours of experience in the program that they're teaching before they can even teach that. And then once they get here, they get a professional teaching certification, a vocational certification. So that's what your kids get when they come to CMAVTS. Does anybody have a question for me?
Tony, this is Chris. Thank you for that. And Ken, thank you as well for joining. I do think that if you could just take just a short amount of time for the folks that haven't been involved with the evolution of the Benton impact on Columbia Montour and what that means with enrollment, what that means with some of the staffing and the actual, like just a summary, if you will, of the impacts of Benton and how that looks going down the road.
Okay, I can start, and I'm sure Mr. Kreider will want to join me here. So as far as enrollment, Benton typically has, they had an allotment of 11 students per year. So if they had used all of those spots, which they typically did, as a matter of fact, when they withdrew, they actually had more than their allotment. They had used some of the other school spots. But generally speaking, they have around 43, 44 spots here at the CMAVTS. So those spots will now be available to the other districts. As far as the impact on number of teachers, it's not enough students to reduce the number of teachers that we have in the building, because we're still offering the same number of programs. We still have enough of a demand for all of those programs. And as I mentioned before, 17 of those. And as far as academic programs, that number alone isn't enough of a number to reduce staffing in that regard. What it does, however, is it creates, the shortfall financially. Benton this year would have contributed had they had their full allotment and been in the consortium. They would have been up around $570,000, right around that range. And then over the next 4 or 5 years, that number would have increased up over $700,000. So by the year 2024-25, they would have been contributing close to $750,000 that now has to be made up in another fashion. So hopefully that answers some of those questions, Chris.
Okay.
Mr. Kreider, would you like to interject anything?
Yeah, and again, we've taken a look at this from many different angles, and of course, coming into it, the actual night that I was hired as the director of the AVTS was the same night that they voted to allow Benton to leave the consortium. And when we really take a look at it, this is the main reason why we took a look at the building project and this burden that's going to be placed out to our sending schools, maintaining what we currently have and where we're at with that, and talking to the team and the JOC, the board members as well. We're really concerned about making sure that we maintain the current structure and programming that we have before we look at anything down the road for future adding new programs or expansion along that line. We know that $750,000 to be able to be spread out amongst the 6 sending schools to be able to maintain what we have is asking a lot. So we want to really do our due diligence with the expenditures and make sure that everything is in check and we're doing our part. As well, I just want to put the emphasis on the type of equipment that the students get to work on when they come here to our school. We have that state-of-the-art industry-based equipment. For any of you who have not had the opportunity to come into our school and tour our facilities, I'll put that offer out to you to be able to come and see exactly what we have within our building that these students get to work on. The industry-based certifications that the companies are looking for, the cooperative education experiences, capstone co-op for their senior year. I understand Danville also has a cooperative education coordinator, so you're very familiar with how that works. Those are the valuable things that the employers are looking for with the employability skills that go with everything. So it really becomes a true package deal. Our academic instructors have curriculum that is aligned right directly with our vocational programs. And so they're all kind of speaking the same language, teaching the same things to the trades that the students need to know to be successful when they graduate and leave our program. And whether that be to go out into the workforce or go into post-secondary education or even go into the military, they become job ready. The culminating exam becomes that NOCTI certification or NIMS in precision machining that they would take, and they get to carry those credentials with them as they leave our programs for those who successfully complete them.
And just to follow up, I had mentioned that the result of Benton withdrawing created about 44 spots. So that means that's 11 spots for each freshman class. What that means to Danville, if you use the formula that we use to calculate pupil quotas, that would mean an additional 3 students per year, per grade level. Per each freshman class would be admitted to CMAVTS. So that would mean 39 spots available to Danville.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? I have just one quick question. Do we find ourselves in a position where we have more students that want to go that we can't, as a internal question to Danville? Do we run into that?
Chris, I'm not sure specifically Danville. If I had one of the Mr. Dunkelberger probably would be able to answer that specifically. He's not here right now, so we can get you that answer. But what I do know is we certainly have had more applicants overall than what we've had spots for in the past. So for example, last year, meaning applicants for this current school year, we have 178 spots available each year. We had 285 applicants last year. Now, of all those applicants, not all met the minimum criteria. So that narrowed it down somewhat, but we still had a waiting list that was quite significant. What happens is not all of those that qualify and who have applied decide to come. So then you have a few more that are allowed to come from that wait list. So typically by the start of the school year, you're down to maybe between 30, 40, 50 that are still on the waiting list. And then after the first couple of months of the year, you even have more kids that decide to go back. And so I'm not sure, Ken, if you know how many we have right now on the wait list, but that's where we started.
Okay.
Yeah,
Mr. Wynn.
Mr. Lilo, can I ask you a question? This is Jeremy
Sure.
Wynn, the high school principal.
Yeah, hi, Jeremy.
If we don't use, so Mr. Snover, you probably couldn't hear him. We have more. I'm sorry. We have more spots this year than we have applicants. So did you say that if we don't fill all of our spots,
yes,
that there is a financial benefit to the school district or financial return?
There will be, yes. So it's not immediate. It will be built into that 4-year rolling average of average daily membership. So what that'll show is maybe you have 100, you would, if you used all your spots, you would have 130, and I don't know the actual number, but 136 total students here at CMABTS. But maybe next year, because you've only used 35 of the 39, that number would show when that year comes into the formula, it would show 132 instead of 136 total spots. So therefore it would reduce your percentage, because what's going to happen is another school's going to use those 4 spots. Okay, so then their percentage of total cost would go up and yours would go down somewhat. Yeah, so it would have an impact. It just wouldn't be immediate. It wouldn't be next year. It would be once that year. And the formula, because of the way the state releases the average daily memberships, it's always a couple of years behind. Okay, but yes, it would definitely impact your cost.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? All right. Well, thank you, Tony. Thank you, Ken. Appreciate taking the time tonight. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much for having us. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving through the agenda. Next we have for consideration is the consent agenda items. We entertain a motion to approve items 7.1, 8.1, 8.2, 8.3, 9.1, 9.2, 12.1 through 12.5, 13.1, 13 through 13.7.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Kears. Thank you, Mrs. Fish.
Mrs. Fish,
Yes.
Mr. Gordon,
Yes.
Mr. Kirsch,
Yes.
Mr. Reichert,
Yes.
Dr. Yuasa,
Yes.
Mr. Huron.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 8.4, 8.5, and 8.6. We can break them out separately, or we can make a motion to include them as one motion. I have a motion to include 8.4 through 8.6.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mrs. Fish. Thank you, Mr. Reichert.
Mr. Gordon,
Yes.
Mr. Kirsch,
Yes.
Mr. Reichert,
Yes.
Mr. Yuasa, Dr. Yuasa.
Yes.
Mrs. Fish,
Yes.
Mr. Huron.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we are on agenda item number 11, I believe. Right? Finance reports? $11.3, okay. The board will take action to approve the bills of payment for February 3rd, 2021 through March 4th, 2021 as presented. So I have a motion to approve item 11.3.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Kirsch. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Fish.
Mr. Kirsch.
Yes.
Mr. Reichert.
Abstain.
Dr. Uasa.
Yes.
Mrs. Fish.
Yes.
Mr. Gordon.
Yes.
Mr. Huron.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. We have items 11.4 through 11.7. Do I have a motion to include them as one or separate any of them?
I'll make the motion to include them as one.
Thank you, Mrs. Fish. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Kirsch. Roll call, please.
Mr. Reichert.
Yes.
Dr. Uasa.
Yes.
Mrs. Fish.
Yes.
Mr. Gordon.
Yes.
Mr. Kirsch.
Yes.
Mr. Huron.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay. Item 12.6. Okay, flipping pages here. All right, thank you. Okay, we have items 12.6 through 12.10. We can make a motion to include them as one or break them out as we desire. So we have a motion to include together items 12.6 through 12.10.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Reichert. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Kirsch. Roll call, please.
Dr. Uasa.
Yes.
Mrs. Fish.
Yes.
Mr. Gordon.
Yes.
Mr. Kirsch.
Yes.
Mr. Reichert.
Yes.
Mr. Huron.
Yes. Thank you. Motion carries. All right, we're on to item 15, I believe. Okay, thank you. Are there any board concerns or any items for the next agenda? Anybody on the board? Anything at this time? Twice, I'm looking around the room. Okay. We'll move to the second public comment period. Once again, same protocols. I'll start with the folks in the room. Is anybody in the room? Nobody in the room has raised their hand. Jeff, do we have anybody or that other person that might have fixed their technical issue? Anybody out there that wants to make a public comment at this time?
You didn't join back up, but is there anyone else that has public comment? Please raise your hand. No public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, item 17. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Yep. All second.
Oh,
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say no. Okay. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.